Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this regularly scheduled Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Our first item will be pledge to the flag. Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, I'd like to ask Jim Tanzolo to come forward. If I can get this thing opened up. There we go. All right, so Jim has been a real help to our community and has been serving on the Planning Commission and numerous other activities within the township. So I would like to read this recognition to Jim, a resolution for his service. Whereas James Tanzolo was appointed to the Springettsbury Township Planning Commission on January 2nd, 2018, and whereas Jim served on the Springettsbury Township Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, and whereas community service is a cornerstone of good citizenship that requires significant time, effort, and responsibility in working toward community goals, and whereas Jim has shown dedication and persistence in the fulfillment of his duties as a member of the Springettsbury Township Planning Commission, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Springettsbury Township, on behalf of all of the citizens of Springettsbury Township, acknowledge sincere gratitude and appreciation for James Tanzolo's dedication during his years of public service. Adopted this 12th day of February 2026, signed by the Board of Supervisors. No speech? Okay. It's been fun. I appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And I have two more signatures to get on here, but
All right.
we're good.
Official.
It's all official.
Thank you.
At this point, I would like to announce that we had an executive session on January 22nd, and there were two topics, a personnel matter and a legal matter. So at this point, I'd like to open up the floor to communication from citizens. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to address the board, raise your hand to be recognized. If there's anybody on Zoom that would like to address the board, click the raise hand button and you'll be recognized. Yes, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Volkemer. My address is 720 South Kershaw Street, York, 17402. So I've been a resident for Springettsbury Township for over 20 years now. Back when I first moved here, my neighbors were a first-generation immigrant couple from Greece. And today, a wonderful Indian family lives just down the block from me. Several of the businesses that I frequent here in the township are owned and operated by our immigrant neighbors. When in school at Central York, my children had friends from Turkey and Vietnam. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, roughly 6% of our township residents are foreign-born. To put that into perspective, that's only slightly fewer students than are currently enrolled at Central York High School. And yet that does not take into account the exponential number of lives that these people touch through their children, their spouses, other family members, and their friends. Gentlemen, I do not support ICE. Their brutal tactics that we've witnessed too many times to be considered isolated events. I believe that all people, no matter what color their skin is, the language they speak, or where they came from, residing in our community should be treated with dignity and respect and must be afforded due process as promised by our Constitution. Given ICE's activities across the country and in municipalities closer to home like West York, I'm fear for our immigrant community members. And I would like to know if this topic has been discussed and what you as our elected supervisors are doing to keep our neighbors here in Springettsbury Township safe. Thank
I
you for your
appreciate your
time
concern.
and
Thank
the
you.
opportunity.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Okay.
Anybody online? Anybody else in the audience? All right, then we will move on to our next topic, which is our engineering reports. Diana?
Good evening, gentlemen. There are no updates to the report that was submitted last week. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions? Thank you very
Thank you.
much. John?
Based on my engineer's report, two of the plans that are discussed in there are on the agenda tonight. We have a number of plans coming forward. That's why I mentioned those. And if you have any questions, we could discuss it during the plan review process on the plans that are scheduled for this evening.
Questions? Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Next, we have our consent agenda items 5A through 5F. Is there anything that anybody would like to have removed for further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of consent agenda items A through F.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have bids, proposals, contracts, and agreements. CDM Smith, updates to zoning and subdivision and land development ordinance project, request for contract supplement in an amount not to exceed $97,500.
Mr. Chairman, this supplement will get us to the finish line on this project, which we're entering the stage of a lot of work with the consultant and the board regarding the proposed zoning amendments.
This is the additional work that we requested to go through all of those changes.
Correct.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of CDM Smith, Inc., updates to zoning and subdivision and land development ordinance project, request for contract supplement in an amount not to exceed $97,500.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next, we have authorization to approve proposal for Able Recon for Sholton Drive Storm Sewer Lining Realignment Project in an amount not to exceed $73,300. CoStar's contract as listed.
Mr. Chairman, this project is included in the general fund capital improvements budget.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of authorization to approve proposal from Able Recon for Sholton Drive Storm Sewer Lining Realignment Project in an amount not to exceed $73,300. CoStar contract number 041-E23-238.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, I have authorization to execute contract with GES Automation Technology for installation of ignition system on wastewater treatment servers in an amount not to exceed $79,750, and that's the Shared Sewer Capital Improvements Fund.
Mr. Chairman, this as well is included in the budget, and it will bring our alarming system up to current time.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for authorization to execute contract with GES Automation Technology for installation of ignition system on wastewater treatment servers in an amount not to exceed $79,750.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have subdivisions and land development. Our first one up is SD 2023-0002, Druck Valley Road subdivision.
Good evening to the Board of Supervisors. This is a plan that was in front of you at your January 22nd meeting, and it was tabled. The consultant has made some adjustments to their project since the supervisors last met, and they do have representation here this evening to speak to that. If there's any questions that the board has in regard to either the plan summary or the Township engineer's comments, certainly we're happy to answer any of those throughout this process this evening. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to, I think the representative tonight is from Barley Snyder, their attorney, to speak to the project.
Good evening, Stacy McNeil here on behalf of the applicant. I'm here again this evening with Dan Wright from Montrose Environmental, Dan Thornton, who's our traffic consultant, and representatives from the applicant. So at last month's meeting, you will recall we spent the majority of the meeting talking about access for this subdivision. And following that meeting, at which time the plan was tabled, the applicant scheduled and went back to yet another meeting with PennDOT to again revisit whether anything additional could be done with access instead of or in addition to an emergency access along Druck Valley Road. At that time, PennDOT, given the consternation that the supervisors had with the emergency access, PennDOT did authorize a right out only at that location on Druck Valley Road. And so that has been presented to your township staff along with a concept exhibit of what that right out only would look like to provide a second means of exit from the subdivision in case there would be some sort of issue and there would be need for a second means of egress from the subdivision. Obviously, the details of what that would look like will eventually, during final plan stage, have to be coordinated in conjunction with your emergency services as well as PennDOT. Will require PennDOT HOP, obviously. But that is a significant change that has been made to the plan since we were last in front of you.
So I think the issue is that the two means of ingress and egress are supposed to be full through streets, which means there has to be ingress and egress at each location. Is that my understanding?
Your ordinance does require that. Of course, again, as we've discussed, due to the physical constraints of this property, that's not going to be feasible at this site. We did explore the possibility, and Mr. Thornton can speak to this further if needed, the possibility of a right in, right out at this location, and that will not be allowed. And so we do recognize that this reasonable modification, as is provided under the municipality's planning code and your ordinance, is required in order to allow the development of the property consistent with your zoning ordinance in this particular case. But again, I believe the developer has provided a very reasonable alternative here that provides a functional equivalent of what is needed under the subdivision and land development ordinance. 」 . 。 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」 . 」
. . . . . . 」 . . 」
I'm still having a hard time with this. I don't think it meets the intent. It certainly doesn't change much for the number of families that are going to be living behind that without two means of ingress and egress to a development of that size. My personal feeling.
I applaud your efforts. You've certainly gone back and done what you could with PennDOT, but it just doesn't meet the code. It needs to be two full-turn intersections, and there aren't two full-turn intersections. So unless there's another way of skinning that cat, I don't see how we can approve it.
So respectfully, I understand that it doesn't have two full turning accesses, and that's not feasible. You can't do that for this site. But I disagree that it doesn't meet the code, in that the code specifically allows for modifications such as this in this type of situation, as does the municipality's planning code. So when your property has physical constraints such that strict conformity with the ordinance is not feasible, and you have provided an equivalent, a functional equivalent, then you're entitled to that modification under the ordinance. The reason why the municipality's planning code provides for those modifications is a recognition that every property is distinct and unique, and that the codes will not always work for every single property. So in this particular case, frankly, even if we had a right in, right out at this right out only, that would meet your ordinance. But I don't see how that changes for the people who live in that development in any way, the functionality on a day-to-day basis of that development, given the access points and how that development would function, which is really the crux of the matter here. And ultimately, the property is zoned for up to 122 dwelling units. It's being proposed for 84. And the intersection being proposed, the primary intersection, will function at the best level of service possible, level of service A, as approved by PennDOT. We have the means to have people in and out as necessary for emergencies. We've shown a turning template for full turning movement accesses, for emergency vehicles, for snowplows, et cetera, throughout the development. So given all of those parameters, I don't think that having a right out only versus a right in, right out at Radio Road is making a practical difference in the functionality of this development.
So you used a lot of terms like you are entitled to and it's reasonable, but that ordinance is written so that anything over 600 feet and over, how many is it, 12 properties or something like that, John?
30.
25 dwelling units, I believe. The ordinance, if you had a cul-de-sac, would allow up to 25 dwelling units on a street that would have a cul-de-sac.
How many would fit on a street that's 600 feet long?
I think they require in that development 100-foot of frontage, so you might only get a dozen lots out of that.
So what we're saying is our ordinance is written so that anything over 600 feet and over a dozen to 24, dozen to 2 dozen properties, this doesn't work. So now we're extending those distances in there to 1,800, 2,000 feet, 85 properties, and we're restricting one of the access points. You keep talking about reasonable. In my mind, that's not reasonable.
I guess from my client's perspective, what they have is property that has been zoned, that the township zoned to be developed for medium density residential development. It's been zoned that way for quite some time. And with this relief, and they're obviously entitled to develop it under the zoning ordinance up to 122 units. They're only developing it for 84. And frankly, you're looking at basically a very significant devaluation in this property that the township, in its comprehensive plan and its zoning, was counting on for residential development. So now you're taking property that in the comprehensive plan is being considered for, assumption of residential development, and you're basically saying, but no, you're not going to be able to residentially develop it. Instead of 122 units, you can have 12 to 24. So we're going to displace that residential development to someplace else in the township that's maybe not zoned for residential development. That's just not consistent with your comprehensive plan. It's not consistent with your zoning, because instead of a right in and right out, this is a right out only.
And I would like to just say, Mr. Chairman, about modifications, there is a provision in the MPC for modifications. Everybody knows that we've done that. But in short, the governing body, if authorized, may grant a waiver. And the last sentence there is probably the most important. Provided that the modification will not be contrary to the public interest and the purpose and intent of the ordinance is observed.
Well, and I appreciate that. And again, there's nothing from the day-to-day standpoint to show that even one point of access will have any functionality issues. PennDOT, in fact, says that one point of access is safer than two. One point of access on the state road is safer.
You're conflating different concepts when you say that.
Okay.
All right. Continue.
So one point of access on a day-to-day basis is safer. The individual.
Stop doing that, please. I don't believe that you're using what they say in the intent of what they meant. So I would defer to a traffic engineer.
Then I will have Mr. Thornton come forward and speak to this. Thank you.
Please.
Mr. Thornton, if you could please express what PennDOT District 8's position is on one versus multiple points of access onto the state road.
PennDOT's District 8 standard, right now is that one point of access for a property is safer. They want to limit the amount of access points onto a state road. So if your property there, they prefer to have just one point of access. We did have the conversation with them. They finally conceded to say possibly we could get the right out at Radio Road.
So is that because the 2 points of access are close together, because one of the points of access is a little bit limited in sight distance? Is it because they don't ever want a huge development to have more than one point of access onto a state road?
If we had 1,200 feet of frontage, they might grant us 2 access points, but we do not have 1,200 feet of frontage. So there's limited frontage. There's also a sight distance issue looking to the right. So where we have our driveway right now for a full movement access is the best location to maximize sight distance to provide the safest condition for people entering and exiting the site.
So what you just said to me is that it's the limited amount of access you have onto the state road that is why PennDOT doesn't want 2 points of access that close together.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
That's absolutely
Okay.
right.
That's exactly right.
We don't have sufficient road frontage. This property does not have sufficient road frontage to provide 2 points of access. It is limited in its road frontage.
to provide access for 85 houses in a large development that should have an access point at another location that is diverse from the first point, which is exactly why the ordinance is written the way it is. So I guess I still don't understand how you're telling me that PennDOT prefers only one point of access for a large development. I think that is,
If
the way that was stated is hiding the intent. I'm sorry.
if the access, say, was failing, PennDOT would then probably say, we need to do something to make an improvement. But it's a level of service A for our access, for the 84 homes. So it's not a failing situation. It doesn't warrant any kind of turn lanes or anything like that. It's only a low volume road. So they are comfortable with only one access point. Given the frontage as well, that they want to try to limit the number of access points out on the state road.
And again, this property, this is an existing condition that this property was in when it was zoned this way, to be developed for medium-density residential development. So this is the existing condition of the property. This is the property's existing road frontage. Now, my client has gone and attempted to obtain access, other additional properties, or other access for road frontage because of the conversations with the township, and there is no one else is willing to grant that access or that property. But those conversations, as was provided to the township, they have tried to engage in those conversations. But the reality is that this property, as it exists, as it was zoned by the township, that's the frontage that they have. Those are the physical conditions of this property. And again, my client has done everything they can to comply with the ordinance. They have an access that meets level of service A. They're providing full emergency ingress and egress so that times of emergency you have the equivalent of 2 access ways.
So I guess we can talk at this from lots of different directions. But for me, the kind of simple answer for me is that we have staff recommendations to deny the 2 modifications in the staff memo, and I would tend to take that advice from our staff.
I'm not aware of that recommendation, but perhaps that was provided to the supervisors and not to the applicant.
Well, to me, it's the same conversation we had the last time we discussed this, and that the 2 access, the modification for the 2 access points and the cul-de-sac length are problems that have not been solved to my satisfaction.
And from the applicant's standpoint, we understand that the applicant has done everything within their power to try to address this. They are without the power to do anything further. They own and have no control over any other land or road frontage. And PennDOT, which has the jurisdiction of this roadway, will not allow a second full turning movement.
who we have on here? We've got five waivers, modifications, and 14 conditions of approval. Do we act on each waiver individually? What do we?
Well, I would like the opportunity, if, obviously, to have a brief statement on each waiver before action.
A statement from,
The applicant. Because I'm not certain what's been presented at this point to the Board of Supervisors in your staff memo.
well, what I read here is with reference to subdivision plan SD 2023-0002, preliminary subdivision plan for Druck Valley Road, I move to recommend the approval, denial, or table of the requested 5 modification waivers as listed above. Gentlemen, I think we're at showtime.
You looking for a vote?
Looking for a motion.
Motion? Would you prefer that we vote on this tonight, or would you prefer that we table it to give you more time? To me, comes down to waiver number 3. 289-41-A- or paren 6 and paren 6. Subdivision shall have at least 2 points of access. You now have 1.5 points. You're closer, but you don't have 2 full-term accesses, and you can't, you're telling me.
We can't.
So
I mean, we've had multiple meetings with PennDOT. There is only so much of road frontage. They've talked to neighboring property owners to try to gain additional access. It's an impossibility to get the right in. So we have the right out. We can't get the right in at that, and we can't get that full turning movement access. So I guess I defer to my client, but I don't see a need to continue to belabor this point when my client has done everything that they possibly can to meet that ordinance provision. There's nothing more that they can do. I would, I guess, maybe ask for separate consideration of the other waivers, or maybe for feedback if there is any concern on any of the other waiver modification requests, which I believe there had been previous discussion in a prior meeting on the stormwater loading ratio. My understanding is certainly, first of all, one of those requests has now been withdrawn. And my understanding was that the second one has now been brought into line where it is in line with your engineer's recommendations.
Is it listed that way on here, John?
They averaged their loading ratios, and I put it as, if the board is willing to act on that, total loading ratio, instead of averaging, just a maximum of 15-to-1 loading ratio. And they could tweak those basins and make that work. And we have done that.
So let's start with waiver 3. And then we can go back to the others depending on what happens. So
I couldn't exactly hear what the chairman just said.
I said, let's start with waiver number 3, since that seems to be the big one in question. The chair would entertain a motion for either approval or denial of waiver number 3.
I move to deny waiver number 3, 289-41A, subsection 6. Subdivision shall have at least 2 points of access.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll go back to waiver number 1. Sheet size 24 by 36.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 2, 289-27C, driveway and access drive entrances or aprons within street right-of-way shall be surfaced to their full width. The type of surface to be concrete.
And to clarify, this isn't the actual driveways to the private streets. This is the private street connection to Druck Valley Road.
The reason why we have that in our ordinance is some streets come down at a pretty steep slope. They have a vertical curve on them. There's a very specific geometry. And if you have a sidewalk along a public street, the public street would be, in this case, would be Druck Valley. That sidewalk is required to slope at 2%, not more. So if the vertical profile comes in and let's say it's like a 4% slope coming down and they're feathering it out, what ends up happening is the sidewalk that was to be there does not comply with the ADA maximum 2%. So if they're required to separately put a sidewalk in and then tie the road into it, we can mandate and make sure that the sidewalk is ADA compliant. We've provided that on a lot of different projects in the township.
Do we have a motion on this one?
I'm still trying to parse what the township engineer said. Did you say that this has been done
Yeah,
other times in the township?
we've had concrete sidewalks. We typically have the public street, the curb, the grass island. We've often had a concrete sidewalk in to connect one side to the other. And that's why we have it in the ordinance, is to make sure that the sidewalk is ADA compliant through the intersection of their development road and the walking surface. But yes, we've applied that to quite a few projects in the township.
And I would add, this is one of the first discussion items we had in our first meeting with John, and we don't have that extreme grade coming in. And actually, we have 2% cross slope and a 2% longitudinal slope across the whole. So it's a normal, bituminous to bituminous driveway.
So, John, you were suggesting that the reason for the ordinance is in the extreme cases, not in this particular case.
Right, and
Okay.
they all vary, but it does allow highlighting the sidewalk itself, that's true.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Now I understand that one.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 4, 289-41.K, subsection 6, cul-de-sac, length of 600 feet.
Where this comes from is if, on the exhibit provided initially, if we were to call Radio Road a through street, then we have a through street, we have that internal circulation, but because it's a limited as an exit only, then I would believe it's not a through street, and the cul-de-sac's determination of length is much larger, as referenced in our memo.
I would move for denial of item 289-41.K.6 in Bren.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5, 281-15.C, subsection 3B, maximum total loading ratio of 8 to 1. And we just had that discussion.
And the revised basins would each be at 15 to 1.
Or less, I hope.
Or less, that's fine, yep, maximum 15 to 1.
John, is that something we have anywhere else in the township?
Yes,
It
yes,
is 15 to 1?
we've
We've allowed it?
We've allowed that on occasion, loading ratio slightly higher, yes.
Then I move for approval of 281-15.C, paren 3, paren B.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Would we recognize the conditions at this point?
Mr. Chair, yeah, you would recognize the conditions at this point, but it would be the full plan approval subject to the conditions that are outlined in the staff memo. I think I answered your question, or did I not? The staff has provided conditions for your consideration. It is up to you whether you want to include those conditions
Okay,
as
so
part of the approval process. So you can certainly read through them and say whether, whether you would like each one as part of the plan, or say that you don't want those conditions, you don't believe that they are applicable. But it is part of the full approval process of the plan.
I guess my point was that the motion would be to approve the plan with the conditions, but are we approving the plan?
Well, Mr. Chair,
If we've denied a waiver that will disallow,
as presented, the plan waivers that were requested in order to get the plan approved, 2 of them have been denied. So you can certainly present the motion with the conditions presented, but again, because the waivers are not, have been denied here,
the plan cannot move forward until those are rectified.
correct.
That makes sense.
Not to me. I don't see any point in dealing with the conditions until the waivers have been met. But maybe that's just me.
I would agree with you. I'm just saying, if you're going to make the motion subject to the conditions, you're voting whether to approve or deny the plan in total.
Okay,
Is
so
that-
tabling these until the issues above are taken care of would be an appropriate way to move forward.
That's more efficient, yes. Yes.
Then I would move to table the conditions of approval until the waivers that have been denied have been addressed.
Could Mr. Cox possibly speak a little louder so I can hear him?
I'm sorry, Don. I moved that we table the conditions of approval until the denied waivers have been met.
Second.
I have a
Thank you.
motion and a second.
You're
All
welcome.
in favor?
Aye.
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 Are you voting on the whole plan now? That the applicant has put forward a plan for approval. They have removed the time constraint on it. That a decision is being requested on the plan. The waivers have been, 2 of the 5 waivers have been denied. The conditions are really not relevant right now. It's the full plan that is relevant. So a decision needs to come forward as to whether you approve or deny the plan. If it is denial, you would cite specifically why you are denying it. The reasons would be the 2 waivers have not been met, citing the exact portions of the ordinance. That would be the way, that would be the next step here.
James, you make a good motion. Mr. Chairman, I would move for denial of the plan until the conditions, or until the waivers
Well,
requested.
I'm not an elected official, but I would suggest to the elected officials,
Please.
an appropriate motion would be, I move to deny the plan based off of it not meeting, and then the ordinance for the 2 access points. Sorry, my computer went to,
Okay.
289-12.c.
Correct.
289-49 for the, oh, no, that's the wrong one.
the cul-de-sac length of 600, 289-41K. Oh, sorry. So you're going to deny the plan because it does not meet the requirements of 289.
289-41 dash, or dot A dot paren 6.
Correct.
And
289.
289-41 dot K dot paren 6.
Correct. Yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have subdivision 2025-0001, Lake Hirsch, 1351 Haynes Road Extended.
Yeah, this is a two-lot subdivision that's located in both Springettsbury Township and York Township. We do have representative tonight from Gordon Brown and Associates to address the Board of Supervisors in regard to the details of this particular plan, but it's in essence joining the two lots together to create one. And with that said, I'm going to turn it on to the representative from Gordon Brown.
Good evening. My name is Jake Hebel. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Hirsch. So the plan we have here, existing Lot 1, the property is split. Half the property is in York Township, half the property is in Springettsbury Township. Lot 1 is the York Township portion. That's an existing lot that's 2.324 acres. That lot has a dwelling on it. Lot 2 is in Springettsbury Township. That's a vacant parcel that had a mobile home on it at one time. It's vacant now. That's 2.5 acres as well. We're combining the two parcels into one lot, 4.867 acres. That's all we're doing. The reason for this is that down the road, he would like to eventually build a barn or of some sort of a barn or shed on that lot, lot 2, which he can't do that right now because it's a vacant lot that has no primary structure. He can't just build an accessory structure without a primary structure. That's the reason for the subdivision. But at the moment, we're not proposing any improvements. We're just combining the lots, and then that will be down the road. He'll have to do whatever plans will be necessary for that, for stormwater and whatnot. So with that, we're asking for 5 waivers. Minor subdivision waiver, plan scale, stormwater plan, traffic impact study, and then invert and rim elevations for the existing manholes and inlets. The last letter that I have, the conditions of approval were, let's see here. Provide drainage easements at all existing stormwater pipes. That was discussed before.
That's good.
We're good with that.
Yeah, I
Change.
don't see that one here.
Right.
Is this not the latest letter?
You're looking at the engineer's letter, not the one that this board has, the plan summary.
This one here, that's the right one.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the one they're looking at.
Okay, so
We have 3 conditions listed: the point of access and profiles of all driveways, performance requirements, and the not more than 1 shed or greenhouse shall be permitted. Since it's a non-conformance,
Yeah.
a shed destroyed can no longer be.
So is the note that I have on the plan sufficient for that? Correct. Okay.
It
and
is.
Then, and then condition number 1, that one note needs to be revised to take out the language of significant structure. Is that
Right.
Okay, all right.
Right, significant traffic.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, all right.
So those are good as they're written here?
Yes, and I'll just say, this is one application of the minor subdivision because they're not creating any new building lots. And all the heavy lifting, I think, was done by York Township, but they were kind enough to include Springettsbury. So there's a note on the plan, curbing, widening, and sidewalk to York Township standards on their side and Springettsbury Township standards on our side. So we have a note in lieu of that, so.
The note is already on the plan.
It's already
for
on the
6
plan and
months.
includes Springettsbury Township.
So do we need to go through the waivers and conditions, or can we just approve the plan with all the waivers and conditions listed? Yeah. Then I would move for approval of SD 2025-0001, Luke Hirsch, 1351 Haynes Road Extended, with all conditions and waivers.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any communication from supervisors this evening? Solicitor's report.
You have a copy of my memorandum. Any questions from the supervisors?
I don't remember.
Glad it was memorable.
Excuse me?
I'm glad it was memorable.
I do remember. Yeah, okay. We're good. Township Manager's report, Mark?
I don't have anything to add.
Ordinances and resolutions. We've got 4 resolutions for recognition. We have recognition of Timothy Staub, James Tanzola, James Breyer, and Michael Lavia. Or is it Lavia? Lavia, okay.
Can we take?
I move for the adoption of Resolution 2026-33, recognizing Tim Staub.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I move for the adoption of Resolution 2026-34, recognition of James Tanzola.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I move for the adoption of Resolution 2026-35, recognition of James Breyer.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I move for the adoption of Resolution 2026-36, recognition of Michael Lavia.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anything to discuss in old business?
We have the presentation. Brandy's here to give the presentation on America 250.
Okay, good.
And then she's going to follow that up with the alcohol presentation.
Oh, did you bring samples?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just wait for. So first, we're starting out with the America 250, celebrating the semi-quincentennial here at Springettsbury Township. We have been in contact with the county. We've also been in contact with America 250 PA to make sure that we're all on the same page. So maybe this isn't going to work again. Yes, no. Okay. So obviously, most of you were all there for the first part of it, which would have been the Liberty Bell installation that happened July 9th in 2025. So the commemorative installation of the Liberty Bell was our kickoff for America 250. Starting in January, we started a social media campaign that will happen monthly to share facts across our social media platforms, all focused on the history of America 250 and highlighting the unique history of York County. So stay tuned. Each month there'll be something new as we go along. I believe in July there is double the amount of post there just to get everybody excited as we go through. Also, in our Food Truck Fridays in June, we have asked our vendors to participate in a red, white, and blue themed special dish. I wish I could tell you what they're going to be, but it'll be a surprise to everybody. We are getting feedback. They want to participate, so we'll highlight that every week when we do those through the Fridays so that everyone knows what those specials are going to be.
We worked with our summer park leaders last year to start working on a curriculum specifically dedicated to activities in July for America 250. So we will have themed crafts, we'll do a commemorative slideshow, they will do some type of a tournament. So I don't know, we do a large capture the flag tournament here. So we'll probably host it during that week too, to kind of get the kids excited and explain a little bit about history during that time. We are having the U.S. Navy Band, although this is slightly premature because it is the only contract I do not have for the Sounds of Summer quite yet. So fingers crossed, this is the date that I put on here. But we are going to have a high energy musical performance. We will be sending out special invitations to local veterans. We'll have our food trucks there, of course, and try to make that day really special. July 3rd is a Friday. We will be having our massive fireworks display that day. Our performance will be by Groovalicious. We will have America-themed superheroes such as Wonder Woman, Captain America, walking around. We'll have bounce houses, face painting that day. So, like always, we'll have a pretty awesome Independence Day celebration. And now the most exciting part, or at least it is for me, because I've been thinking about this for an entire year. We will be having a drone show here at the Township. So on August 19th, it was York County's birthday. It's their anniversary. So that's why we chose that date. We did not want to compete with all the stuff that's happening over the 4th with the county and the state. We wanted something that was going to stick out. There will be 250 drones creating a show along with pyro drones to give it a little spark there. We'll also have a concert by Dave Bray USA. We have some Uncle Sam Stiltwalkers coming, some superheroes, and yeah, we're working on the show right now. We had a meeting this week to go over some ideas. Mark got to see some ideas. Summer, who's our Parks and Rec coordinator, has been fantastic. She's been researching new and different ones, so we've changed this slideshow 5 times already in the last 3 days. So they're creating a storyboard, so it's going to be pretty neat. And Hollywood Casino York has already given us money to sponsor towards it. So we're pretty excited about that. That was really the big finale. That was the exciting part. So does anyone have any questions about things we're doing?
I do want to talk to you about that Navy Band one.
Okay.
We can talk afterwards, but I'm going to reach out to my management team. And since we make large weldments that go into the nuclear Navy, they may be interested in being a part of that somehow.
We would love that.
Guarantee it at this point, but
Yeah, no, we would love that. We're hoping, normally they send us the contract. I thought for sure it would be here. I actually made a phone call today. I was like, oh God, we're presenting, but didn't get back to them. But usually by the end of this month, we have their contract. We also were reached out by the Air Force, which has never reached out before, and they are interested in possibly doing a concert as well. So stay tuned. That just came across my desk 2 days ago from Dory. So we're waiting to hear back from them to see if possibly they can coordinate with the stuff that we're already doing. Okay. Any other questions on that one?
any questions?
Okay. So the first couple of slides of this presentation, this is the allowing alcohol at selected township-sponsored park events, specifically at Springettsbury Township Park. We will go over just a couple of things that we went over last time briefly, and then go into a little bit more detail. So the reason that we're presenting this is to enhance the social experience and fun here at Springettsbury Park by allowing moderate alcohol consumption that can help people relax, that can contribute to a more festive atmosphere, and it also serves a mature audience that we currently are not serving. So we do have events for young children. We do specifically for arts by our Makers Market. We do specifically children's events for our Saturday in the Park, but we do not currently service that mature adult audience. Some of the economic benefits obviously would be if we throw a large event, we would be able to collect the ticket sales and hopefully create a revenue source for us to help continue to fund parks and recreation events in the future. We also are hoping to attract more attendees from out of town, hopefully boosting revenues for local businesses and for our economy in general, you know, going out to eat before, after, staying at hotels here in Springettsbury. Like I had showed before, that it does align with our modern social norms. I used Penn State, I used People's Bank Stadium downtown here. It shows us that we're reflecting a more trusting and less restrictive approach. There's a lot of businesses locally that do that, semi-locally, specifically Long's Park's music series, which isn't quite as good as ours, but pretty nice. They do a beer garden at every event that they have. I am not recommending that, but it is something that they do. There is a lot of Brew Fest. There are different ones in Red Lion, in Dauphin County. They do a jazz and wine festival. Sickman's Mill does their floating in the summertime and has their own specific drinking section there. The Appel Center, and not to forget that prior to me being here, it was allowed at Saturday in the Park. So the approach that we're taking is a responsible approach and not prohibition. We would like to have a trusting area that we work specifically with our Springettsbury Township Police to have a plan of action. We are not proposing that the public can bring alcohol to our park any day, any time. We are saying specific events that are in a controlled environment. That is what I'm requesting from the board. To get a little bit more in depth in our partner process. So there is an off-site serving process. So when someone holds a liquor license, which is the approach that we would be taking, they would have the onus of most of the responsibility because it's their liquor license that they have to provide to an off-site arena. They go through, they'd have to submit all of their information to myself, who also would then meet with our township manager to make sure that this is the event that we want to do. They would submit to the PLCB and their website, and we would have that 14 days in advance. Usually they do it 30 days in advance, but the minimum requirement is 14 days. We would also receive a letter from the PLCB for the event. On the day of, we would have that letter present. The event would be no longer than 24 hours. All staff would be ramp certified. They'd follow all the guidelines and house rules. And alcohol must be consumed on the premises that was approved and not taken off-site. And that would be posted. Here's an example letter that was provided to you just to show what the PLCB does and all of their rules. You have to say exactly where it is. It's 10 by 10. It's outside. So it's very specific from a coverage standpoint. And we would also invite them to our event from that standpoint. From an internal process, we'd obviously coordinate with the township manager. We would collaborate with the human resources, our insurance company, and the Springettsbury Township Police when creating this event to make sure that we were all on the same page, that we have all of our P's and Q's in order. We will have strict regulations about responsible alcohol management plans in place, such as checking your IDs, training anyone that's serving. We won't be doing any of that serving, so it will be on our partner that owns the liquor license, as well as there's IDs. They will provide us with the information, letting us know that all of them have been certified. I know it's not the exact same, but similar for our food trucks to serve anything here. They have to provide us with a serve safe, with their insurance, with their licensing. All of that has to happen. And then we keep an Excel spreadsheet with all the dates when everything's due. So we will keep that, all that information documented. We'll obviously comply with all the state and local laws. We will take safety precaution, the transportation options, obviously Uber, Lyft, those types of things. We will provide if someone needs phone or access to call a friend, relative, neighbor, we will provide that as well. And then utilizing the liquor license of others will help limit our liability and ensure that they obtain their own insurance with Springettsbury as the additional insured. That will be part of the process to help limit our liability. These are some of the things that will be posted in those areas. Most of them are by law, need to be posted, but just letting you know that we can't serve anyone that's visibly impaired. The fear method, even though the partners will most likely have a scanner for all of their IDs, on top of that, they're all trained on that method to make sure that they feel, examine, ask, and return all licensing to ensure. Speaking with our partners, we will probably do a wristband approach. Everyone that is 21 will have to have a wristband to enter. No one under 21 will be able to enter at all that area. Also, the notice that you have to be 21, but again, those are all legal posters that have to be there. So the two idea areas that we would have would be at the top track where currently our bounce houses and those types of things for the Saturday in the Park. You can see that tented or roped off area. That would be for a wine and jazz type festival where we can use tents and roping. It makes easy access, especially with the track around it, to be able to keep people in one location. The second part that's by the amphitheater is if we were to do a beer garden at specific concerts, that would be, that entire area around the volleyball court would be roped off. We used to have food trucks down there. They are now up in the midway, so there's nothing in that area. It would be specifically roped off for that. So the plan for 2026 would be to create one new event centered around 21 plus age group, which patrons would have the option to participate in the alcohol consumption, and also to create a designated area for alcohol consumption at 3 Sounds of Summer events. Those Sounds of Summer events would be specifically worked out with the township manager based on the band, the crowd. Also, we have not put out, it did not fall on deaf ears last time, Bob, when you asked, well, how will we know it was family friendly? How do we make sure that they know? I have not put out specifically the Sounds of Summer concert series, 1, because of the U.S. Navy band, but 2, because I wanted to wait for this meeting, because we will highlight those 3 specific concerts in there that says 21 plus, beer garden, I don't exactly know what it's going to look like yet. We're working with a graphic designer, but those 3 specifically, you will be able to see and advertise that that's going to be there so that people know in advance. And why start small? We want to test the participation. We don't know if this is something that Springettsbury is going to, really get into and make this festival 10 times bigger as years go on, or if they're like, this isn't it. So we want to start small by doing those 3 events, one big event, and try it at 3 of our concerts. If it works out well, we'll continue to have the conversation. If it doesn't, we'll adapt, we'll make adjustments and move forward from there, but we won't know unless we have the opportunity to try. Questions?
are you thinking of the 4th of July event, I guess specifically, as
No.
being one of them?
No,
Thank you.
absolutely. No. I still would like to have some friends here at Springettsbury.
Sure, sure.
So, no.
Boy, what a leading question.
No, the concerts, I mean, I need to talk to Mark
I
specifically.
really like the idea of one new event that would be specifically an adult-only
Yeah.
alcohol and a beer fest or whatever.
Yeah.
Would be great to test the idea. I really don't like mixing alcohol and children.
I'm not either. I mean, when
Yeah.
I talk to the two different partners, people that we are interested in working with, that was specifically, Saturday in the Park was off.
Sure.
July 4th event was off. It was our Ferry Festival is off.
Yep.
That's not something that we wanted to do. But there are some specific concerts. I'll say it right now. The Amish Outlaws would be one that I would say, hey, this is probably a great event to test it out. It's that crowd. There's another band that wavers a 40 to 50-year-old Go-Go Gadgets. That would probably be one that I would recommend. But I don't, again, want to sit down and flush through the concerts. But they're not, like the Taylor Swift concert we had a couple years ago would be a no-go. Or the Bruno Mars one is also one that I already crossed off my list, mostly because so many people from different ages come to that. That's not the crowd that we're looking to test it out on. So I am being conscious, of course, of that when we're making those decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm looking for from the board is authorization to proceed.
I think it's a pretty cautious plan
Yeah, I agree.
put forward, and I think boundaries are clearly set. I'm in favor of it.
I agree.
Somebody want
Go for it.
As long as there's free beer for the supervisors, I'm in.
I can't drink beer.
I can't guarantee any of those things.
I'm kidding.
Thank you.
We have some fans. All right. Under new business, I need to have the resignation of Brian Kaufman as alternate member of the zoning hearing board acknowledged.
I would like to first recognize the participation of Brian Kaufman in the zoning hearing board. He was a very valuable presence on that board, very knowledgeable and involved. I witnessed it a number of times, and he did a great job. I also want to note that Brian was willing to stay on the zoning hearing board in addition to the planning commission, except for the fact that it's kind of against the law. But he is dedicated to helping out in Springettsbury, so that's a great volunteer we have there, and he's very knowledgeable. And the other thing, since I have an opportunity to say it, Brian participated. Well, Brian was an alternate to the zoning hearing board, and in my personal opinion, the position of alternate to the zoning hearing board has been interpreted in a way that it makes it almost useless, because they can now almost never participate. They can participate, but they cannot vote. And it's kind of silly the way it's set up, but I'm sure there's someone who knows legal reasons why it is that way, but it seems silly to me. And I will, with regret, acknowledge receipt of Brian's letter of resignation from the zoning hearing board.
We need a second? Second?
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I guess to add, I mean, Brian has now accepted a position on the planning commission. I think that the issue that Don was talking about is the fact that when there are not enough members and he's actually sitting as the alternate, he doesn't get to vote. I don't understand that.
Correct.
I mean, he's actually filling in for a member. You would think that he would have some ability to impact the vote, actually substituting for a member as an alternate. It just,
Chair
Don
Swat,
and I
Chair.
are in agreement. It does not make sense.
Contact your state legislators.
All right, I guess that brings us to the end of our agenda this evening. Thank you, everyone.